Welcome back to Dead Good Book Reviews. I'm Judith. It's the day after my birthday when I'm filming this. That's why there are birthday cards up. Nothing strange has happened. It's just time travel, I promise. You're watching another episode of Overbooked, the series where I talk about every single book in my shelf because I'm trapped in a strange labyrinth and the other is telling me it's my life's purpose. Why am I talking so weirdly? It's because today's book we're talking about is Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. In frame, in frame. I want to give a quick shout out to Justine over at I Should Read That, who gifted me this copy of this book for Christmas of 2020. Very grateful. You should always go check out her stuff anyway. I recommend her in almost every single video. But today, she is the reason that we are all here. I also want to say that I'm filming this at 4:20 in February, so if the light just leaves us in this video, that's how it is, okay? We're just gonna have to deal with it. Finally, I am gonna keep this review spoiler-free, as all Overbooked videos are, as far as I know. I don't think I've ever put a spoiler in one of them, hopefully. But if you do want to go in knowing absolutely nothing, then click away now, because we're gonna get into some elements of the plot that perhaps you might not like to know if you want to preserve more of the mystery of this book. But come back when you finished and let me know how it went. Piranesi is a standalone fantasy book published by Bloomsbury in 2020, and it is the latest full book from author Susanna Clarke, who's a British author who's probably best known for writing Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, the big chunky fantasy book. I did read that in 2020, wasn't the biggest fan of it. She has another collection of short stories which is called The Ladies of Grace Adieu, which published in 2006. So we're talking 14 years between that and her latest book. While I liked Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, I wasn't a huge fan of the amount of detail in it, or the extra stuff, which is kind of pertinent to this review, but also sort of isn't. So I'm talking about this from the perspective of someone who had read that previous book and went in with some kind of preconceptions about Susanna Clarke's writing. I wanted to let you know about the ideas I had going into this book, which were, I hope this is more succinct. This is a series of diary entries written by a man called Piranesi, who is kind of like a hermit living in this big, enormous, sprawling house that he can't get out of, that's filled with random hallways filled with statuary, and also a kind of sea, or multiple different seas that are just flowing throughout the place the whole time. He spends the days mapping the hallways in order to relay his findings to the only other person alive in the house. But when chalk messages start to appear in some of the vestibules, he realises that maybe he's not as alone as he thought he was. There's something else going on here. Piranesi has to uncover the secrets of this world that he lives in, and at the same time basically unpick everything he believed to be true. I don't want to go into the plot in too much more detail than that, because I think it is a big mystery thing that wouldn't be enjoyable if I just told you everything that happens in this book, suffice to say. Given what I've just said, I'm not going to make you wait to hear whether I actually enjoyed this book or not. I really did. Was it more succinct? Absolutely it was. This is only 250 pages or so compared to what, 1,000? However many Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell is. But even just considering there are fewer pages, this book really does feel pared back. It's a very, quite often quite literal take on the world in these diary entries. It's all reported, and I think that that makes for a book that you can really fill in the gaps yourself, which is something I was missing in Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. I think Susanna Clarke creates a main character that gives just the right amount of information to the reader, so it still feels believable as a diary entry that someone would write. You know how some books you read them and they're diaries and you think, why would anyone write this bit of world building in a diary? This would just be assumed as something everyone would know, and I think part of the relationship that Piranesi has with the other means that it makes sense for him to be writing all of this down in the way that he does. So yeah, it feels realistic as much as any fantasy feels realistic, you know what I mean. If a book sells itself to me as a mystery, it had better grab my attention and make me keep reading, and this book absolutely does that. Looking back on it as a book, and having now understood as much of it as it lets you understand, I think there are some elements that are a little bit more drawn out than they perhaps need to be, but for the most part it's this glorious feeling of being 2 or 3 steps ahead of the main character from the very beginning. It's not something that's revealed later on. You are always just a tiny bit ahead of him, and it's really interesting to experience that mystery yourself and then read another character experiencing it. Atmosphere, I say this in a lot of videos, but it's my favourite thing in a book. I love a book that has good atmosphere, and this book is definitely one of those. I really loved the descriptions that obviously we get from Piranesi's perspective, but I loved the descriptions of all the different hallways and all the different statuary, and the sort of ways that he distinguishes different rooms is really interesting, and the way that he distinguishes different years as well. You know, so the year that the book is written in is the year that the albatross first came to the first hallway or something like that. I can find it. The year the albatross came to the southwestern halls. Yeah, like all of that is so evocative of this kind of strange, slightly eerie set apart world that we're in. All of the detail we have and all the detail that's missing sets up this really good juxtaposition of somebody who knows a lot about some things and not a lot about others. And I find that really interesting, and it makes for a really creepy, kind of spine-tingling atmosphere throughout most of the book, and that's why I think this would make a really good read for around about Halloween. I don't know when you're watching this, but hey, it would make a good Halloween read. If you like really solid resolutions of this is what was going on, this is how it worked, end, then I don't think you'll get that from this book. I think it leaves too many things open if that's your preference. Personally, I don't mind an open ending or even an open middle. I'm kind of cool with it, but I think that depending on your preference, that might be something to take into consideration if you're planning on reading this. But equally, there are some things that are explained, so if you are the kind of person who prefers everything to be left completely wide open, equally it might not be for you. It sort of sits, if the spectrum is everything explained to nothing explained, I would say it sits around about here. Yeah, somewhere towards the not explained section, but not quite fully there. I'm a happy medium person, so it suited me just fine. I was thinking about some things to compare this to, and I think in terms of this sort of strange, not quite explained atmosphere, I wondered about Erin Morgenstern's The Starless Sea. It's very hard to say, but I think that might be a good option. I think also this idea of sea indoors, it just reminded me of that. That's probably another thing that triggered that, but I do think that there are some similarities. If you're interested in YA, I thought about Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor, and thinking about it now, I can't quite remember why, but I think this idea of being trapped and finding out things about yourself that you weren't necessarily expecting, I think that's probably about as far as I can talk about that without spoiling Strange the Dreamer for you. And then finally, this is maybe a bit of a stretch, and also it's a book 2 in a series, so it's not the same in terms of tone whatsoever, but in terms of the general something strange is going on here and I can't quite put my finger on what. Harrow the Ninth by Tamsin Muir, and I know it's the sequel, and maybe I'm just recommending it because it doesn't make any sense to me, but yeah, there's something in there, that kind of audience being a little bit ahead of the characters. There's something there. Final thoughts. I think that this is a book that would suit a lot of people. I think a lot of people would enjoy it. I think that it covers a lot of different ideas and it's just good to read. I did listen to a clip of the audiobook when I was trying to work out how to pronounce the title, and I really liked the narrator for that. I have no idea how the full audiobook goes, but I think it would be beautiful to listen to in audio, and probably even more creepy. Maybe I don't want to do that, but I think that it would suit a lot of people, and if you are thinking about reading it, I would say go for it. It's a good book to read. Also, if you were put off by Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, I will say this is a very different book. It still manages to capture that kind of creepy atmosphere that the really, in my opinion, the really good bits of that book had. I don't think it's as simple as saying, this is Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell without all the extra stuff in it, because it's really not by any stretch of the imagination, but it's just tighter writing and I really liked it. Comment below if you have any more atmospheric recommendations. I'm always looking for them. It could be the next book that I say has atmosphere in spades. Who knows? Somebody get me a spade to shovel all of this atmosphere or something. While you're down there commenting, please do follow me on all of my social media and subscribe because it makes me feel loved and appreciated. That's all from me, and I will see you in the next one. It's gonna be some bloopers now. And today how was you with the one? Give me a page.